Hi everyone, welcome back to Check Your Leader TV, and today we're going to continue with our O group solo playthrough. The scenario is closing the pocket, which is a scenario I'll put together. If you look in the description below, you'll see a link to the video part 1, which explains the scenario, the mission objectives for both sides, and the forces involved. So I'm not going to labour on that. We're now going to go on with part 2. It's now turn 4, and the Germans have the initiative. I'm not going to give you a blow-by-blow description of every turn in this second part. I'll maybe show some dice rolling for specific or what I consider significant events, but other than that, I'm just going to play through each turn and then at the end of it give you an overview. I'll lace some still photos in throughout so you can see exactly what's going on the table, obviously, because otherwise why would you bother. But without further ado, let's crack on with closing the pocket part 2, and it's turn 4. Okay, so opening up turn 2. Now initially the Germans, their plan was this forward observer here was going to call in a divisional artillery mission onto this this feature here. Unfortunately, these German platoons here have moved in a little bit too close. They're within 8 inches of the center of the feature, which is where they would be targeting, because they don't have line of sight to these chaps here. You can ignore that rule when you're dealing with combat patrols, but not platoons on the deck. So if he was to call in a mission and try to place it on that feature there, it would invariably be too close to these infantry, too close for comfort. So we're not going to be able to do that. He could call in a divisional mission using this as a target, but he'll only catch one unit. So instead of going with a regimental mission or a divisional mission, he's probably going to have to opt for just firing mortars onto these chaps here. So that's what we'll do. Turn 4, Germans initiative, and they're going to start with calling in mortars. Now, mortars don't have to be used right at the start of the turn, only fixed tubed artillery, like regimental and divisional artillery. Mortars you can use at any point, but we're going to open up with mortars here straight away anyway. So let's crack on with that. Okay, so we opened up with, the Germans opened up with mortars. They only got one hit. It was accurate, it was zeroed in. They only got one hit, and that Russian platoon in that on that feature there survived. The next order that was given was to the recon element. They've moved from over here, and they moved 14 inches over here. They're not within range of anything to conduct recon, but they're heading towards this side of the table to conduct reconnaissance there. Next order, the German short 75 Panzer IVs engaged the Russians in the wheat field here. There was 2 sections. They opened fire and didn't get, they got enough, they got plenty of hits. They got 5 hits, but the Russian section being suppressed was classed as obscured, so they shrugged that off. Next, order was given to the German platoon here. They're within 14 inches, so they opened fire. They got several hits on the Russian section. Got a kill on one, which removed one section, reduced it just to the one section that we see here. They did a rout test, which is their morale rating, and they passed that, so that one section is still there. And so far, the Germans have used up, of their 9 orders, they've used up 2, 3, 4, 5. They've still got 4 to go, so let's push on. So the next order was a rally order here, a 3 dice rally. They've removed all the shock, and the other German order was to advance the company commander with 11 inches, and he's got himself behind his 2 platoons there. He's got a combat patrol out here for his 3rd platoon, if so desired. And that leaves the Germans with only 2 orders, and they're going to use them for any kind of react to the Russians. So now we're going to go with the Russians, and we'll continue with their phase in turn 4. So the Russians start their phase, they're going to go with their FO and call in a mortar mission. They were successful, and they got 3 hits on this German platoon in the open, and they saved them all. They rolled 3 4s. So that's the first thing that the Russians have done. Okay, so moving on. The Russians used 1 order on these chaps here. They basically broke cover, moved rapid, and they've got back that far. So that was one of the things that they've done. The other thing is they advanced both of these platoons forward. They opened fire on this German platoon here. Got several hits, but the Germans saved them all miraculously. In response, this German section then reacted and fired on this German platoon reacted and fired on this Russian platoon, and that resulted in no casualties on them. Then the Panzer IVs were given a react order, and they fired on this platoon as well. Again, they got 4 hits, but miraculously, because they weren't spotted, it was harassing fire, no casualties on the Germans. So the situation is now, the Germans have used up all their react orders. All they can do now is go into reorg, or they could attempt to use a company command order. So as for the Russians, well, they've used up 5 of their 9 orders for this phase, so they've still got 4 orders left. So let's push on and see what they do with those 4 orders. So the next order that was used was a company order from the Russian first company commander. He rolled a 6, so it only cost them 1 order. They opened fire at close range at this German section here. 6 dice plus 1 for close range, 7. Got 4 hits, and the German platoon saved them all. So everything's going the Germans' way at this stage. Okay, so the Russians have used 1 order to deploy this tank platoon on the Russian right flank, with a view to putting pressure on the German left flank, which hopefully will create some kind of pressure and cause the Germans to shift some of their effort to this flank. Okay, so that leaves the Russians with 1 order left. Now they could attempt a company order over here and try to get these tanks to move again, but they've only got 1 order left, and they might have to dive into their battalion orders pool, and they're at 4 at the moment. They need to get 5 before they can call divisional or regimental artillery in. So the Russians are not keen to jeopardize that chance of getting that indirect fire support happening for them. So they're going to just forego that, and so that takes us into the reorg phase. So now we're going to crack on with that. Now the attackers get 2 reorgs, and the defender gets 1. So it'll be 2 for the Germans and 1 for the Russians. Okay, so the Germans, in response to this new threat on their left flank, company commander, 2nd Company, has deployed 2 extra combat patrols on his left. So that's the 2 regroup orders that the Germans have used. You'll have to excuse me, I keep interchanging regroup with reorg. They mean essentially the same thing. And for the Russians, they attempted a 3 dice rally on this platoon here and failed all 3 of them. Again, this has been a shocker of a turn for the Russians. They're just not, things aren't going their way. And as a consequence, they were unable to remove that 1 point of shock. So they're still carrying it. So that ends turn 4, and now we're going to move on to turn 5. So 9 dice each. Let's see what we get. Russians are obviously the red, or in this case orange. Germans are white. Okay, so that's a pretty good roll for the Russians. A pretty ordinary one for the Germans. The Germans will end up with one of their 2 companies on table hesitant to be randomly decided. And they've got 6 company orders, and they currently sit on 6 battalion orders, which is the maximum. The Russians, for their part, the first 6 is just a chain of command sorry, just a company order. But the second one gives them another battalion order, so that will take them up to 5 battalion orders, which is what they need to be able to call in indirect fire support at the regimental or divisional level. And that will give them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 company orders. Well, we've rolled for initiative and the Germans have got it. They had a +1, but they didn't need it. They've got the initiative, even if the Russians are tied with them, because the Germans have that flexible doctrine thing and whatnot. The Germans win ties. So the Germans have the initiative, and we then rolled to see which company was hesitant, and it has turned out that it's this company that's hesitant. So now we're at the start of turn 5. Germans have the initiative. Their left flank company is hesitant. And we'll crack on. Okay, so now the real conundrum for the Germans is on their left, they're hesitant. So you can't deploy. You can only move and fire at close range. So they can't deploy any anti-armor assets against these Russian tanks over here. So they can either stay there and risk being overrun by armor, or they can move back. They can move back fully, so that's not a problem. So we're going to have to think about how we're going to deal with this Russian armor over here to the Germans. In the interim, however, they've got this issue here that they can crack on with. So what the first thing they're going to do is they could call in artillery to deal with that armor. So I think that would be the sensible thing to do at this point. So they're going to call in a divisional fire mission. So that's going to cost them 2 orders, and they're going to try and foil that Russian armor with just weight of fire, maybe shock them up. So it's going to be rolling on the fire mission division. Let's see what they get. All right, they've come good. Okay, so that's an 11 fire mission division. German rockets. If pre-42 receive heavy howitzers. Okay, so they're going to get heavy howitzers. That's kind of handy. Now that we know that we have the heavy howitzers, we roll for accuracy. Whoa, 12. Okay, so it's going to be critical, so that's going to add 1d6. So it's on target. And it's going to be 10 dice per vehicle under that barrage. Okay, so for this vehicle here, hitting on 4s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits on him. And for the one beside him, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 5 and 4. This vehicle here saving on 4+. He saved all but 1, so he takes 1 shock, and the other one takes 3. So 1 vehicle shocked and 1 suppressed. Okay, so now we're up to, we're going to go over here. Over here, the Germans are going to attempt an opportunity, attempt to shoot at these Russians at close range. They've got no shock on them, so it's 6 dice, +1 for the close range. They'll need a spotter because those Ivan is on that wooded ridge. Four hits unspotted. Russians saving on 4s. They save 2, so they take 2 hits. Okay, so the back and forward between these platoons here continued. They fired, they reacted, they fired, they reacted. Then the recon quad fired with 5 dice because it's close range. Didn't spot, however. And then the Panzer IVs fired and did spot. Net result is this platoon is suppressed. This platoon is hesitant. They have lost a section as well, or a squad. So that's now 3 Russian infantry squads that they've lost. They're 1 off of Fubar. For the Germans, they've got a suppressed platoon here and a platoon here carrying one shock, and the Germans have one order left. So the Germans, with their final order, they've moved the combat patrol that was over here away from the Russian platoon that was on their right flank. They're now going to attempt to do some recce of this area in here, because that's a likely ambush position. The Russian roll is obviously the orange dice. Okay, so the Germans have successfully recce'd in there, and there isn't anything in there. So there's no Russian ambush units in this area here. That's used up all the Germans' orders. They could dive into their battalion pool of command orders, but they're not going to. Just as a reminder, the Germans have successfully reconnoitred this area here, as indicated by the little German cross, and in here. So that's just a reminder to me that these areas have been reconnoitred, successfully reconnoitred by Germans, and they've proven to show that there's nothing in there. So these cannot be used by ambush points for the Russians. Okay, now let's go to the Russian defensive phase. Okay, so what we did here is the Russian attempted what they call a rear guard. It costs 3 orders plus a command order, company command order. I rolled, and he rolled a 5, so it cost him an additional 1 order. So 5 orders all up. However, what it permits you to do is do a 3 dice rally per unit and a 2d6 move. They moved back. They rallied off all their shock and went back 10 inches. They rallied off their shock and went back only 3. And the section was here, rallied back to a point here. I only managed to remove 1 point of shock, but did move back 11 inches, which got them to this point here. So it's expensive use of orders. You can only do it once in a game, but that rear guard has extracted these Russian platoons from a fairly precarious situation. That leaves the Russians with only 1 order left. They could dive in and do a mortar stonk, and they will. They'll burn one of their battalion orders to achieve this, so that'll take them down to 4. It's probably worthwhile because there's a chance that that's a suppressed platoon there, and we might get some kills on them. So it's 5 dice. Well, first of all, we're going to roll to see if Ivan gets his mortars. 2d6. That's cocked. No. Oh, so it's a wasted order. Or is it? 4. I'll check. It might be harassing. Well, unfortunately for Ivan, a unmodified 4 means that their mortars have gone low on ammunition. So not only do they not get any fire from their mortars, they've gone low. And because they've used one of their battalion orders to affect that fire mission, they're now at 4 battalion orders. So next phase, unless they roll a double 6, they're not going to be able to call in divisional artillery either. So an expensive blunder for the Russians, but on balance, I still think it was worth the risk because they could have killed some German squads, and because Ivan is only 1 off suffering a foobar, and the Germans have only had 1 team lost. That's their infantry support gun. So we'll now go into the regroup phase and then move on to turn 6. Okay, so in the reorg phase, or the regroup phase, the German company commander moved forward 6 inches and they deployed a platoon on that combat patrol there. The Russians, for their part, the armour did a reverse and they got a good 5 inches back, reversing 2d6, pick the highest, and that's where they've got to. That was to get themselves out from under that devastating artillery. Suppressed units can only move if they withdraw, which is what that T-26 did. Okay, still 9 dice each. Well, the Russians have certainly got no shortage of double 6s. All right, but it doesn't look like anyone's gone hesitant. Mind you, the Germans gave it a red-hot shove. Well, that's an extraordinary role for the Russians. They'll easily get enough double sixes to get their take them up to 6 battalion orders. So they've got 6 battalion orders and 7 company orders. For the Germans, they've already maxed out at 6, so those 2 sixes become company orders. They've lost the 2 ones, so 5 company orders plus the 2 sixes, that's 7 company orders. So 7 company orders each. 6 battalion orders, so it's just a straight roll to see who has the initiative. The Germans get the initiative. Okay, so now it's turn 6 for the Germans, and we'll go through what the Germans did in their phase of turn 6. First thing they did was they attempted a 3 dice rally here. Was only managed to get one shock off, so that was pretty unsuccessful. They did a 1 dice rally here. They wanted to rally and move. They were successful. They removed the 1 point of shock and they advanced a measly 2 inches. The recon element advanced 10 inches, and the Panzer IVs advanced also 10 inches. So that was first company's orders handed out, and that's what they did. So now we come to second company, and with their orders, they deployed the 50mm anti-tank gun and engaged the T-26s, and I randomised it 50-50, and they ended up hitting the T-26 on the right and destroyed that. The Russians then used a react order with this T-26 here, and they fired and inflicted 1 point of shock on the PaK-50. The company commander then gave a second order to the PaK-50, rolled a 1, so had to throw in another 2 orders. So that was all the company orders used up. They fired -1, they needed an 8 essentially, and they rolled a 7, so they did not hit the second T-26. In response, the Russians have used only 1 order, 1 company order. The Germans are going to hold on to their battalion orders and use them, maybe use them in response. So that takes us to now the Russians. And they have, if I'm not mistaken, they should have 6 orders left, and they're going to go with that now. So the first thing the Russians did, they ordered their mortars to restock with ammunition because they went low on ammo last turn. The Russian infantry platoon that was down here withdrew rapidly onto this high ground here, and the Russian infantry that was over here withdrew rapidly into this wooded area. The FO, when these guys came up on the high ground, decided he wanted to move away from them because felt that they might draw some unwanted attention, so he moved over to here. Company commander, 2nd Company, deployed a combat patrol over on his left, trying to tie in with number 1 Company, and the T-26 did a 1 dice rally to rally and shoot. They removed the single point of shock and then fired with 2d6. Normally the HE is 3, but rallying is classed as moving. Anyway, 1d6, they missed. They didn't hit anything anyway. And that's it. That just leaves the reorg phase. In the reorg, the Russians are going to do a 3 dice rally for these chaps here. So let's do that now, shall we? And see how that plays out for them. They've got 2 shock on them, and they removed 2. So these guys have removed all of their shock. For the Germans, what are they going to do in their regroup phase? Okay, so the reorg phase for the Germans, all they've done is they've put a combat patrol out here onto the high ground and another one here in front of this platoon. So the situation as it stands at the moment, the Germans, all of 1st Company is deployed. They've got 1 platoon that's hesitant. 2nd Company, they've got 2 platoons deployed and 1 in reserve, which can be either deployed at this point to the right or to the left. The Their AT gun has 1 point of shock on it, but other than that, everything's fine. All the markers, order tokens for the Germans are in. I'll gather in for the ones for the Russians, and then we'll roll for battalion orders for turn 7. Okay, so we'll do the Russian battalion orders first. Okay, just a single 6, only 1-1, so it looks like they've got 8 company orders this turn. German battalion orders now. And it looks like they've got 8. Yep, they've got 8 battalion company orders as well, with only 1-1. And now we're going to roll for initiative. Both sides have got 6 battalion orders, so it's a straight roll. Germans are white. And the first time of the game, Russians have the initiative. So they'll go to 9 company orders. And the Germans will have 8 as we play turn 7. Okay, so the first thing the Russians do is they deploy a recon element, so which that's that BA-10 armoured car on that combat patrol. And he's deployed there, and he's going to attempt to blast the German recon vehicle. The Germans are going to attempt an opportunity fire first, though, and they've failed, so they've muffed it. Just so you know, it's always a roll high around here. If you roll a 1, it's not going to work. So it's not a pass on a 1, 2, or 3. It's a pass on a 4, 5, or 6. Anyway, so they've tried to react, but they haven't reacted quick enough. So now the BA-10 is going to engage the German AFV. Okay, so this is the roll for the BA-10. He's going to need an 8 to hit because he has a -1 for deploying. That's classed as movement. Fire will move or has moved. Yep, that's a -1. And he's shooting at a recon element, so he does need a spotting dice. So he has hit and he has spotted. So that'll be on the spotting table. Now the difference, his armour is 2, and the BA's 45mm has a strike of 45mm. It's 4, so it's a +2. Let's see what the Germans roll. Okay, so it's a -2 to that, so he's going to be knocked out. So that's going to be 3, and a 3 on the spotted is 4 or less is knocked out. So that German armoured car is now smoking wreck. Okay, so the next Russian order was to order the T-26 to engage the German Pak 50. The Germans attempted to opportunity fire first though, but again they rolled a 1, so they failed. The T-26 fired, the gun was spotted and they got 2 hits, but the Germans saved them both, so no effect. Now the Germans continued with their opportunity fire, purely as react fire now, but how this time it's classed as, because they attempted an opportunity shot, they are classed as moving. So -1 for moving and -1 for the shock, -2. They needed 9 and they rolled an 8. So they missed. The next thing the Russians did was they attempted to call in mortars and rolled a double 1. So the mortars have gone back to low on ammunition. So it seems that the Russians are having trouble unboxing ammunition, or when they're cracking them open, they're finding for their 82mm mortars, they're getting 60mm rounds. Okay, moving on. So the next order was given to the company commander. He's moved 8 inches from here to here to try to get into cover behind his behind one of his platoons. Okay, so moving along, the Russians gave an order to the platoon in the woods here, and they engaged the combat patrol that was before this German platoon that's been driven in. The next order was given to the Russians in this built-up area here, and they engaged this German platoon, and with their 6 dice inflicted 1 point of shock. The company commander then gave an order to this platoon again. Fortunately, only cost them an extra 1 order. Well, only cost them the initial 1 order because they rolled a 6. Fired again, 6 dice into this German platoon, and have caused them to be suppressed. So clearly, this built-up area here is going to be a bit of a thorn in the side, literally in the side of the Germans trying to advance on the objective, as Russian troops in the vicinity of this built area will be firing from the Russian right flank into the German right flank as it attempts to secure the objective. So it looks like the Germans are going to have to clear this out before pushing on to the objective. Or the other option is they assault through, over or around this wooded feature, this high ground here, and come in on the objective that way. So the Russians still have a couple of orders left. They'll probably keep them for reaction. Okay, so yeah, the Russians actually have 1 order left, and they're going to keep that for any kind of reaction. So now we're going to go over to the Germans. Okay, so the situation for them is suddenly turned a little bit. They're going to probably consider assaulting and clearing out this built-up area here before pushing on. So without further ado, let's now move on to the German phase. Okay, so the Germans, using their first orders, brought in both platoons of Panzer IIIs, hoping to be able to engage the BA-10. Neither of them got on far enough to be able to do so, so instead they fired upon the built-up area here, and their net fire resulted in 2 points of shock on the Russians in here. The Panzer IVs moved up, both fired and both missed the BA-10. So both of the Panzer IVs had a crack as well. The next thing, the FO tried to call in a mortar mission. Was successful in getting rounds on the target, but inflicted no shock on the Russians in the woods. The next thing that happened was the PaK-50 fired upon the T-26. The T-26 attempted to opportunity fire on the PaK-50, muffed that. And when they did fire, didn't cause any shock. However, the anti-tank gun did cause damage to the T-26. Hence, you've got those crewmen running around outside that tank. That's what I use as a damage marker. And that used up all the orders for the Germans. Now we go into the regroup phase. They'll attempt a 3 dice rally here and a 3 dice rally there. Okay, the first guys, the ones on the left, well, they got 1 point of shock off. And these chaps over here, they've taken off all the shock. So they've got all the shock off those chaps. They've taken 1 point of shock off these guys. They've gone suppressed to hesitant. The Russians, for their part, what to do? These guys are fired, so they can't do any rallies. We'll come back to see what the Russians do with their regroup order. Well, the Russians have deployed the 3rd platoon of 2nd Company on this combat patrol here. So that's what they've done with their regroup. And so that ends turn 7. All right, let's move on to turn 8. All right, we're going to roll both dice together again this time. Germans are white. Okay, looks like the Russians have got a hesitant company. Germans look like they've got they've all but one, so they're going to have at least eight orders. Okay, so for the Germans, they've got 1-1. Other than that, so that's 8 company orders. For the Russians, single 6 is nothing. They need double, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 company orders. There's 4 1s, so 1 becomes anything other, except for a 6. So they've got 6 company orders and a hesitant company. So which company will be hesitant? 1, 2, or 3. It's number 1 company. 4, 5, or 6. It's 2 company. So it's number 1 company. So first company. So these guys over on the Russian left have become hesitant. Okay, so now we're going to roll for initiative. Both are on 6 for battalion orders, so there's no adds or minuses. And the Russians have the initiative. So the first order is to rebomb or replenish the ammunition for the mortars, so they've done that. Next order is going to be for the BA-10 to engage the Panzer IVs. Then they'll do a 3 dice rally on this company here, and then they'll order the damaged T-26 to engage the anti-tank gun. So let's go through that and resolve those orders. So the BA-10 fired at this Panzer IV, the only one that's in range, and it just it hit but bounced straight off. The Panzer IV then fired in return and completely missed. This Panzer IV is over 30 inches away, so it cannot engage the BA-10. So the BA-10 lives for another day. These guys, initially I thought they'd do a 3 dice rally, but I decided to do a 1D rally. They rolled a 6, so they removed 1 point of shock, and then they fired with their 5 dice, and they got 5 hits and eliminated 1 squad from this German platoon. So the Germans now have 2 teams lost to the Russians 3. Then we moved across the T-26 opened fire on the PaK-50. The PaK-50 attempted to do an opportunity shot, failed, so had to wait. The T-26 fired, did get a hit, but the Germans were able to save the shock. The Germans then fired in return with -2 for 1 for the shock and 1 for the failed opportunity, but they rolled a 9 and penetrated the T-26, caused another damage, 2 damages, and that vehicle's now knocked out, which means that the Russians have incurred their first FUBAR. Now, how I solo how do you guess, the way that the game works is the immediate command crisis, the side that has suffered a FUBAR places down 1 D6, and then the opponent has 2 opportunities to guess. So the way I resolve this is I simply roll 2 dice. The red will be the Russians, and if the Germans roll the same as this, then they've guessed it on the first effort. First attempt, nope. Okay, so the Germans get their second attempt and they need to roll a 2. And they've gone close, they rolled a 3. So 2 guesses, 2 fails, no battalion orders are lost, but the Russians have incurred their first FUBAR. Okay, so they've still got 3 orders left. They'll use 1 to deploy a combat patrol in this rough ground here near the built-up area. That's been it's within 18 inches of the company commander. That leaves them 2 orders, which they will hold for any kind of reaction. So that shifts it over to the Germans now. for their phase. Okay, so the Germans, for their part, all the armour basically engaged the BA-10. The Panzer IVs fired first and missed. The BA-10 did not react to them. These Panzer IIIs then decided to engage the BA-10. The BA-10 did react, fired, and got 1 point, caused 1 point of shock on this Panzer III here. In response, both of these Panzer IIIs fired and missed. Then these Panzer IIIs engaged the BA-10, and the first one fired, hit, and knocked out the BA-10. So that's now destroyed. The next thing the Germans did is they called in a repeat mission on here with their mortars and inflicted 1 point of shock. And then one of the platoons, the central platoon from 1st Company, moved up onto this high ground and engaged the Russians in the woods, inflicted no shock. They returned fire on the Germans and inflicted a point of shock on them. The next thing that happened was the Germans then deployed from 2nd Company, their 3rd platoon, in the wheat field. They opened fire on the Russians in the built-up area, caused no shock. That ends the turn. We're just into the reorg phase now. So just in summary, German 2nd Company have all their platoons out now. German 1st Company has lost an infantry section, and one of their platoons is now suppressed. All the German armour has been committed on the German right flank and seems to be pushing to the left. Doesn't seem to be, it is. It's pushing to the left. And the Russians have suffered all up 5 unit losses. So they've got a FUBAR +1, and the Germans have suffered 2 unit losses, so they're 2 off a FUBAR. Okay, so in the regroup phase, the German platoon that was here has moved over the high ground. They've moved 7 inches, and the German platoon on the right flank has moved forward, and they moved 7 inches to the edge of that wheat field. The Russians, for their part, they had nothing to do with their reorg. They didn't want to move anything, and they haven't deployed any additional troops, and there's no one to rally. So that ends turn 8, and now we will move on to turn 9. Okay, so the Russians drop a dice now because of the FUBAR, so they're down to 8 dice, and the Germans still have their 9. We'll roll the Russians first. Their 8 dice yields 2 ones, so almost a hesitant company, but not quite, and a single 6. So the Russians will gain from that roll 6 company orders. The Germans roll their 9 dice now. They should be. If the Germans have been diving into the battalion orders, they'd be getting them back pretty quick. But in this case, the 1 is friction, obviously, and so they've garnished 8 company orders. So 8 company orders to 6 company orders, and now we roll for initiative. Both were on 6. Germans are white. And the Germans have the initiative 8 to 6. So they'll go from 8 company orders. Because they have the initiative, they get a bonus order. They go up to 9. So it's 9 versus 6 in regards to company orders. And we are commencing turn 9. Okay, so we're going to wrap up there for now. So that's going to end part 2. We'll be back shortly with part 3. By all means, if you've got any comments, leave them in the comment section below. Also, I highly recommend you subscribe. I do post notifications on Facebook when I've uploaded a video, but I intend to leave Facebook probably in the not too distant future. And so the only way you're going to know that any content is up is if you subscribe. So subscribe, like and share, obviously. And if you've got any comments, again, in the comment section below. Other than that, yeah, and I'll put the link to part 1 in the comment section below as well. But we'll wrap it up there for now, and I'll catch you again in the not too distant future. Ubiquoin.